Всем привет, меня зовут Дима, в Яндексе я занимаюсь базами данных.
Hi everybody, I'm Dmitriy Sarafannikov, I work with the database. I'm going to tell you how we do updates, what issues we faced and how we tried adjusting them. The first thing I'm going to tell about the update process, a major update that is. I will start with the requirements to such an update. The first thing is the lowest possible downtime. We need to be unavailable as little as possible. Second most important requirement is we need to be 100% of time available for reading. So all the clients visiting our databases, our apps, need to be able to read the data, while they will not be capable sometime of writing data. One more thing. Replicas must be updated immediately without any full-scale copying from the master, because databases are quite big, the layers are big, so you will not be able to stand on just one leg throughout the day. So you need to update your replicas immediately. You do it usually overnight. Now, let us look at a tentative update plan. So here you act in accordance with the manual. The PG upgrade. First, you close the master close from the replicas from loading. You update replicas using hard links, because there's a lot of data. You can afford to wait till the data is copied. And then you start updating the replicas one by one according to the manual. So here we see this magical spell for updating replicas, rsync, etc., etc. And then you open up and you're over. So this is the schema, the block map of how you do this. So the database is on 3 legs, one master and 2 replicas. The vertical arrows show the incoming load, and the horizontal show the replication. So let's look at the process. During step 1, we lock ourselves from the loads and from the replicas. You lock it by the firewall, by the rejects. You lock yourself from the replicas so that during the update, since the master is going to stop and to restart, we don't want the replicas, which will still be in 9.5 version. So we don't want them to connect to master, which is 9.6 now. Now, step 2, we update the master. You can see it's now there at 9.6, all right? Then please bear in mind that throughout this time, all the replicas are serving the read-only loads. You can read data from the replicas. Next, we'll lock one replica. The other one continues serving all the loads. We start updating the replica using this rsync magic spell. So let's look at what goes on there. You can see the situation of the master server, which has done the PG upgrade. We have some files in 9.5 folder, and now it's hard linked in 9.6 folder. The PG control file in 9.5 was renamed to PG control old, just in case you start the PG5, nothing happens, because otherwise you can break everything there. And the system creates a new PG control file in the 9.6 folder. And then when we launch the rsync, we basically tell the system, do everything on the replica the way you did on the master. So the system goes to see that there's a file on 9.5 on the replica. There's the same file on 9.6, 9.5, 9.6, which is hard linked to 9.6. So it installs a hard link to 9.6 folder. The same with this next file. And then when the system looks at PG control and says it's a fair file, it's not a hard link, and it copies it to the replica, to 9.6 folder. So we have a mirror situation, that identical situation on the replica. Then we start the replica and we open it for the load. So replica 9.6 serves the read-only load. Next we do all the same steps with the second replica. We update it, So it's not 9.6 now. Now both replicas are now available. They're both 9.6. Usually in this stage we start collecting stats too. The stats for replication is loaded to the replicas, and then we open the master. So that's how we did our update. Everything was fine, but as you can see, it wasn't also nice and dandy. So there were some issues that we had to solve. During step 5, after we updated the replicas, some of the biggest loaded databases showed us after we updated to 9.6, we open up the database and it dies. It couldn't cope with the load. It doesn't have the stats, the plans are all warped, the CPU is not working, you cannot reach it even using SSH, and it cannot serve any load at all. So what did we do? How did we try to manage this? What we did, we used this trick. Step 2.5. After we updated the master, we started gathering statistics on the master, right in VacuumDB. As many streams as you want, as many cores as you want, but basically it doesn't matter much. It will be done at the highest speed for this table. So we gather the stats, and after when we started updating the replicas with rsync, the rsync saw that the files were not on the replicas, so it will take these files together with the control file. So as a result, you have gathered the stats on the master and you copied it to the replicas. Basically all works, everything's fine. This is how we updated large databases, and they were able to serve this load while master was closed. Everything was fine, but it wasn't the end of that problem either. So we had consequences. Sometime later, one of the data centers was undergoing regular maintenance. Some master, we switched over to our data centers, and we saw an avalanche of such errors. Maybe some of you have seen these errors. The database cannot get the transaction status because it hasn't got the PGC log file. Some file we didn't know it. So what did we do? Many queries would be crashed with the errors of this kind, and the vacuum would also crash on the new master, returning this same error. So basically we found ourselves in a situation where vacuum for some table couldn't just be executed, it would crash. So now let us see what a PGC log is, which the system cannot find. Or it's PGXact in Postgres 10. There's a reason for it, because some people see the word log in it, and they thought this is something unnecessary and you could easily delete it. So this is why it was renamed. So if we look into the PGC log folder, we'll see a collection of some files of 250 kilobytes each. What files are these? These files store transaction statuses. A transaction has 3 statuses. It can be either committed, or rolled back, aborted, or in progress. So this file gathers all these statuses, stores all these statuses. If we look into the initial file, we'll see that each transaction has got 2 bits in this file. So there are 4 transactions in 1 byte. It's a lot by the number of pages. Multiplied by the number of bits. There's also this bit mask, which reduces all the bits to 0, with the exception of the 2 bits on the outside. So these are the macros you can use to get the page number. It's a simple math. You get the transaction ID, you get the page number on which it is stored, the byte number, and the index inside the byte. And then you calculate the page number, the byte number. You read the page into the buffer. You take the identifier. You do the shift, and you use the bit mask, which reduces everything to 0, with the exception of the two bits on the side. But the 2 signed bits are our transactions. So it has 3 statuses: in progress, committed, aborted. So this is what happens there. You'll tell me that this is all very interesting, very curious to know, but what can you do in a situation like this? What can you do about the errors? Well, if you open up your PS Quick and you insert the error number there, the first thing you will see is that you can create such a file and overwrite it with zeros. 256 kilobytes of zeros. This will result in the loss of the lines which come back with such an error. Because you may have seen that if we overwrite everything with 0, that the C-log will mean that the transaction is in progress. So that's the logic of the backend. If you need to check whether it is not committed, if you want to see that the transaction does not really exist, is not really in progress, so the system will think that the transaction crashed with an error and simply did not identify the C-log. So the system will give a hint bit and will not show this line to anybody. We haven't seen any other options in the find option. So the second option would be to find these lines somehow and to mend them, to repair them. So this is what we did. This is the line we found, CD ID, the ID of the line. The line that comes back with an error. So we select the line, and we see that the backend crashes with such an error. The first thing that we saw, there's the request of the master and the replica that was before the master. We see that the LSN of this page, the page that contains this line, is different. It's higher on the replica than on the master. So it's bigger on the older master than it is on the new master. So this is a reason to think that some modifications of the page have not been correctly stored on the replica, which then became a master. The next thing we saw that the info mask differs slightly. And we saw these 2 bits which are highlighted in the red there. On the master server, there are 2 zeros, and on the old master, they're both 1. The old master processed this query. Everything was fine. So what bits are these? These are the so-called hind bits. It's some optimization. So that the system does not have to get to the C-log every time. Once we see that the transaction is committed, it shows this hint bit to see the transaction was committed. So next time, the system does not have to go to the C-log because it's too costly to go to the C-log. If you can go without it, you better do without it. So hint bit, xmin. 1 bit means that it is committed to, and the other bit means that it is aborted. And we see that both bits are shown, which means that the line is frozen. So this gives you a reason to think about vacuum freeze. So which basically this line shows in any unclear situation, blame the fault on auto vacuum. Blame it on the auto vacuum. Auto vacuum always is blamed, but usually these blames are false. We even have this joke with our colleagues. But in this case, everybody starts suspecting vacuum. So let us look at what vacuum freeze is. In Postgres, the transaction counter is 32-bit. So it overflows quite quickly. This is why it is made in this cycle. The red dot shows the transaction. It has half of the circle in front of it, half of the circle behind it, which is the past for it. It sees everything which is which was committed in the past, but cannot see anything which is in the future. So we see the situation at transaction number 100. You can see it. This transaction was committed sometime in the past, and this line was not touched by anybody. Nobody deleted. Everybody should be able to see it. It's transaction 231 plus 101. Nobody sees this. We will not see it after we have done the entire circle. So we need to put a mark on this line somehow so that everybody can see it. So this is the schematic structure of the line. It has a heading. Xmin, Xmax fields are transaction numbers. The transaction that created the line and that deleted the line. SID is the ID, ID of the transaction that did something to this line. City ID is the address of this line, the number of the page, the number of the page inside the page, line inside the page, various flags, bits, etc., like hint bits, for instance. Half is header offset. It's the header together with the bit map. Each bit there has a null value or something different. And the user data. So what is vacuum freeze? Let us look at the situation. The situation with these dots on the previous slide. So we have 4 lines, 4 rows of lines 1 and 2, Xmin 99 and 100. You have to freeze it already. But nobody deleted them, so Xmax fields are empty. If Xmax is filled, then the system believes that the line was deleted. It's a transaction that was committed. Until version 9.4, a special frozen SID was put into this field. So backend would understand that the line was frozen using this value, but starting from version 9.4, the info mask field started to show the 2 bits, which meant that the transaction was frozen. So what do we do? What do we have? There's another version of the slides for you. So what did we get? On the old master, the line was frozen. On the replica, the line is not frozen. Does not have any hint bits. Nothing is marked there. So what happened? There's a link to the thread hackers where we discussed it, where we were trying to understand with the colleagues' help what was going on. So when we launched the master to do vacuum DB and to collect statistics, we saw the vacuum launcher was started. It thought that it had to do auto vacuum and to freeze something in the table. So the freeze started, and when we got the statistics, we stopped the master. There was a checkpoint. It wrote down the new control file. But when auto vacuum was freezing the lines, it was writing into the val, and everything then was replayed on replicas. After we stopped the master, the system did the checkpoint. The control file recorded a new position from which the redo had to start. Then our sync copied the control file with the new position to the replica. And due to the size and option, it did not copy the changed files that the auto vacuum changed. As a result, the replica did not replay the while which auto vacuum changed. So this is the scheme of the situation on this slide. You'll see the LSN on the master and the replica, and you see that between the two lines there was vacuum freeze and analyzed, and the replica started the relon starting from that position.
Вот.
Thus, after that all, here you can see the commit. So it was committed to the documentation without the steps where you need to start up and stop the master, and it was needed because the control file was created at minimum level, and if you have replica hot standby, you will need to write this new level in the control file and then copy the control file, because if the replica starts with the wall level minimum, it will connect to master, see the difference, and refuse to replicate anything. And afterwards, another commit took place in PG upgrade, and non-conditional startup and stop of master was done there. And before, if you upgraded from 8.4 to 9.0 and from 9.6 to 10, related indexes and some other conditional things when it started up and stopped the master. Now it is done unconditionally. How to avoid that? Generally speaking, if we start the master and do not stop it immediately, we can get this situation because auto vacuum will run and do something wrong. So you can start the master in single player mode and have analyze in one stream, and then master will not run any other processes, will perform analyze and stop at that, will do checkpoint and stop. But analyze per one stream, it takes a long time. And another, I believe the most correct option is to unplug auto vacuum. So when you start and stop a master, you need to start it with unplugged auto vacuum, and PG upgrade does it in that way. And you get a lot of options like auto vacuum off and so on. So you can see that it is not always bad to unplug auto vacuum. And you can gather statistics after replicas update, but it does not always work in our case, so that is why this option is not suitable to us. Okay, so we understood what happened, and what about how to fix that and what to do about it? We didn't come up with anything better but to write on C functions that would freeze these rows and wrap them into an extension, and we call this extension PG Dirty Hands, because I believe that it is bad to do so. I do not recommend to use it in ordinary situation, because it is better to avoid doing that or fixing the bits in metadata of the database that does not give you direct access. So that is the last hope when you don't have anything else to do. And we had a bypass, but as the vacuum stopped executing there, in case of emergency, we could have, so if there was a risk of wraparound, as a vacuum could not, for example, freeze one table, so sooner or later wraparound will take place and the database will halt. So in case of emergency, if you're getting close to that moment, well, you can assess the scale and how many rows you lose, you can do this, because if a wraparound takes place, it will entail a long downtime, and you will have to manually start it all up in single player mode, launch freeze, and freeze will not work here because of these errors. So therefore, we wrote these functions and fixed the row. Well, we found the rows first and then fixed them. And there are functions freeze tuple and freeze tuple unlocked. And they get relations and TID and freeze tuple unlocked. Unlike freeze tuple does not write it all in a wall. And here we can have a look at an example. We will select with page inspect extension. We see 2 bits here, zeros, so we will select this row from the table, and we will see that there is 1 bit mean committed. Then we will call the function, and then we will see both bits. So if we have a look at the pgx dump, we will see that there is an entry in wall that freeze of 1 row took place. After that, we decided to upload extension to GitHub, and we decided that we would have this extension where we would gather all dirty hacks, and I hope that none of you will get it in production and you will all sleep well, but in case you encounter this and you have to do something dirty of this kind, please send us pull requests and we will gather a whole collection. Here are some links, and you will have a chance to have a look at the presentation, and that is it. Thank you very much for your attention. Your questions, please.
If you could please go over again the wraparound, when does it happen, and what problems can occur as a result of wraparound?
Can you repeat, please, your question?
Yes. So you talked about wraparound, and I'm interested to know when does this happen, and what can happen as a result of wraparound?
Postgres has some counters for wraparound. He remembers last frozen seed for each table and database, and then he sees that where a current seed is close to frozen seed, then he close database, and it is wraparound.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут
My knowledge of theory might be lacking. I had a question about the type of replication. So you had asynchronous, and if you used synchronous replication, would it be useful? Well, we are using synchronous replication on one leg, so one leg synchronous and the other asynchronous. Well, we have different configurations, but mainly that is like that. But in this case, it will be of no use, of no help. Because it's not about replication, actually. So when we close the master from external load and afterwards we stop it anyway, it gives the rest of the wall to replicas and then stops. Afterwards we close it all with firewalls. But the problem is that the control file gets to replica side with a position in the future, and replica starts replaying the new wall with that position. That's the problem. Okay, clear, thank you. Hello, thank you very much for your presentation. And I would like to ask a question. How long was downtime in your case when it all occurred, and how did you live through that? And what do you mean when it all occurred? So after master switched to replica and it turned out that some rows were broken. Well, not all rows were broken, but only some, as you correctly mentioned. But generally, in services, it was not seen that they are degraded, so there was no situation like it was downtime. It was not like all queries were not processed. Many queries were not executed, but the majority of them were not queries initiated by the user from the top, but they were inside, like inter-service interaction. So the users did not notice that at all, practically. Hello, thank you very much for your talk. Could you give us some details on how you found the problem row? How did you find it? Do you mean how we connected all the chains? Well, at the very beginning, you have a query that there is this or that row. Yes, here. So how did you get at it? Generally speaking, as for how we found these rows, so you can see the transaction seed here, and then we started looking into the source files and trying to understand what happened, what was going on, and on the code it was clear that it goes to CLOC when there are no XIN bits, and as there is no CLOC, it cannot do anything here. So we, as far as I remember, took this XID and looked along this table, page inspect, to see which row has this XID, and then we started working with it and compare it on master and on replicas. Hello. I did not quite understand. At the moment when you closed the master, and as you launched a vacuum for statistics gathering, walls started being created there. So these walls did not get the replica because the master was closed from it. So you came up with bypasses to somehow create the same walls on replica's side. But why could you not extract them and replace them from master? But master is in another major version. Okay, clear. Hello, did I understand it correctly that you just need to start it without auto vacuum and do L-sync, not comparing only by size of the files? Yes, if R-sync was without option minus size only, there would have been no problem. The only thing would be that it would just take more time, because otherwise it happens in less than a minute, all the cluster update operation. So in this case, it will just take more time. If you have 5 terabytes of data, well, it is up to you to choose. To have it faster, you can do minus size only and switch off auto vacuum. Hello, thank you for your talk, and the question I have is as follows. You fix hint bits there to solve the problem, but do you think it is possible to get C logs to the new replica that were formed during the vacuum freeze? Do you mean creating C log, ordinary C log? The C log is not existent either at master or replica. Just at the old master, nobody went there because there were hint bits at the row, so it rotated, and both at old master and replicas, but there were links to it left. The question I have is as follows. First, you upgraded master, then you upgraded replicas, then you start the master. But why could you not start both master and replicas? So set replication between them before you open the access to clients. Because 100% access for read is a requirement. You cannot close everything, then get the statistics and open it to clients. I said at the very beginning that we had a requirement that we have to be 100% accessible read-only, so at least one replica has to service the queries. For example, 9.5, it processes queries excellently, and as soon as it gets to 9.6, it cannot do so. So we cannot close everything and gather statistics. Well, it is possible to do so if you do not have requirements like us. Then you can be totally inaccessible for some period of time. But you can take standalone replica that will give data to clients while you're upgrading your system. But for every upgrade, to take a replica from 5 or 7 terabytes of data, while you have a lot of them apart from that, will be very long and costly. Okay, another question. Before starting PG upgrade on master, do you test this process and the successful implementation of it? Yes, naturally. We launch it with checks and we check the schemas. The schema is rolled on the new major version. So do you do a PGF post of the old one? We do schema only, just to see that there are no incompatibilities, because sometimes they happen, but very rarely. Well, we do approximately the same thing, and what helped us is that minus binary upgrade that PG upgrade uses, and if you launch it without this key, it will not, this dump schema or restore schema will work. It can return errors. Yes, it might. And yesterday there was a talk from colleagues from Data Grid, and they said that PG upgrade was always a risk, and it is like that, yes. Hello, my name is Igor, and I have a question. What is the allowable downtime what is the database size? Well, there are different sizes, but in this specific project, well, we have databases of different sizes, around 5 terabytes approximately. There are some larger, some smaller. And what is the downtime for write affordable? Within 10 minutes, as smaller as possible. And everything that goes beyond is a contingency and disaster. So 10 minutes is the time that you can do without writing. Well, yes, but in every specific case, there are new requirements, and it is all being negotiated, so I'm not giving you specific or exact figures. It is just approximately around 10 minutes, and beyond will be contingency. Looks like you do not have any more questions.
Тогда всем спасибо.
And thank you all very much. Good luck to you. Don't allow errors to get into your system.